right, Mallory. Mallory, let's get to some headlines from across the state of Texas in the football world. We're going to start with, unfortunately, some sad news that came down last week. I believe it was last Friday. And that is that Jack Collins has died. Jack Collins passed away at the age of 82 last week. He is a member of the Texas Longhorns Hall of Honor. He played halfback on Darrell Royals teams from 1959 to 1961. He was a huge part of Highland Park history. He led them to an 11-1 record in the 4A state championship back in 1957. And he was the star of their state championship win over Port Arthur that year. And this is it's a huge loss. The reason that I'm bringing it up is Jack Collins also holds a very special place in our history because Jack Collins was the first ever cover boy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football.
It's such a good cover, too.
Back in 1960, it's an iconic cover. Jack Collins, the Texas running back, was on the cover of our very first edition back in 1960. The true gentleman. There's actually Adam Hochfeller, our president, sent me a photo of him, and I think we tweeted out of him and Dave.
That was pretty cool.
Jack Collins and Dave, together. Sad news. Jack Collins Jr. Jack Collins Jr. Died this last week at the age of 82. Speaking of, wow, I can't believe this is just a terrible way to start it. But speaking of tragedy, we are unfortunately we need to report that we had another loss in the coaching community last week. San Antonio Central Catholic head coach Mike Santiago passed away last week. The school announced this on Thursday after a battle with cancer. He was the head coach of the Buttons, San Antonio Central Catholic, for the last 6 seasons. In the San Antonio area, he is also known. He was also known as the first ever head coach of Incarnate Word. He was Incarnate Word's first ever head coach there in 2007 when they launched their football program. Before that, he was also head coach at head coach at Stephen F. Austin during his time. He went 39-27 there, and then went back to the high school ranks and coached at. But he also had stops at Lamar. He had stops at Texas State, a few places out of state as well. But a well-traveled coaching. Well-traveled coach across the state, but especially known there in the San Antonio area as the head coach of the San Antonio Central Catholic Buttons, most recently, and also the first ever coach at Incarnate Word. Mike Santiago has passed away after a bout with cancer. Certainly, we're thinking about his family. Onto the college ranks. So this happened last week, and I don't remember why I was out, but I was out. And I read a tweet from our friend Brent Zorneman at the Houston Chronicle. And he said, the tweet said something about like, man, you know what? I'm not one to let press conferences or media availability or quotes sway me, but like, I'm now much more bullish on A&M this year after hearing Bobby Petrino talk.
Yeah.
After hearing Bobby Petrino talk. And I was like, man, BZ, like, that's my first thought was like, dude, like what? Like why would you feel that way? Just like talking to somebody. That feels like, come on, like what are we doing here? We can't be that easily swayed. So I sent that text that tweet to Craven, our college football senior writer. And he wrote back, he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm the exact same way." He goes, "I feel so much better about A&M this year now that I've heard from Bobby Petrino." And I'm like, okay. So essentially, and there's a piece up on TexasFootball.com about this. The headline is, Bobby Petrino erases 8 months of unnecessary drama with one press conference.
Yep.
And a lot of it, I went back and watched it, and I see what they're saying. Mm-hmm. Because essentially, Bobby Petrino, like for this entire offseason, since they've hired Bobby Petrino, all we've talked about is how Jimbo Fisher won't give a straight answer. He'll dance around it. And he'll just say, oh, it's a partnership.
We'll see how it goes.
We're going to see how it goes. We hired Bobby for a reason, but I'm also the head coach. Like, he's just dancing around, would not just come out and say, yeah, he's going to call plays.
Yeah.
He's going to call plays. And and it was so frustrating because, like, dude, just like why? Like, all that does is because you've got these two explosive personalities, and all that does is fuel us thinking, here we go. Like, there's going to be this is going to come to a head. It's all going to blow up, right? Mm-hmm. So they finally put Bobby Petrino in front of a microphone, and I don't want to downplay it, but all he does is just talk straight and just like
makes sense.
Answer questions.
Yeah.
Like, that's all he does. There's nothing special about this press conference, but it's just so refreshing to come from the podium there at College Station because he just answers the questions. The quote that we've got on there is like, "Coach is the boss, all right? My job is to try to keep him happy and make sure that everything works the way he wants it to work. I work for Coach Fisher. This is his program. That's one of the reasons I'm here, because of my program, my knowledge, and of how he runs the program." And essentially just saying, no, I'm gonna call the plays. Don't worry. I'm in charge of the offense, but I work for Coach Fisher. Mm-hmm. It was that easy.
It was that simple.
It was that easy the whole time. We didn't have to go through the song and dance of like, oh, man, will they, won't they? Are they going to be able to coexist? Instead, Bobby Petrino gets up there and just like, yeah, I work for him. This is going to be every other head coach, offensive coordinator situation that, no big deal.
Yeah, we'll check back in like 3 or 4 weeks into the season.
Simply by answering the questions. Now, my thoughts on the matter have not moved all that much. Because I have no doubt that on September 9th, I think it is when they open. Yeah, September 2nd. When they open at home against New Mexico, I have no doubt that Bobby Petrino is going to be calling the plays. No doubt at all. He's in charge of the offense. And you know what? Unless something goes really wrong, in which case we got bigger issues to deal with. They're going to cruise. Offense is probably going to look great. No big deal. The next week, they go to Miami. And I maintain that the real rubber meets the road moment will be if, in the third quarter, it's like 17-10 Miami, and the offense just can't get into gear. Right? Then what? Then we'll find out what the real relationship is between Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher there at A&M. That, to me, is the real moment of clarity. We can say all we want, and to be clear, I agree with Brent Werdeman. I agree with Mike Craven. He put a lot of unnecessary drama to bed with one press conference. But that doesn't change the fact that that's easy to say in August.
Actions speak louder
than words. It's
than
harder to say in mid-September or October. That's what I want to say. So, anyway, that's something to keep an eye on. I also want to direct you to TexasFootball.com. There's a great piece up on there about the Johnny Manziel documentary, Untold Johnny Football. Now, you guys reviewed it on Republic of Football, right?
We did.
You, Carter, and Ish reviewed the Untold Johnny Football. I listened to it. I thought your review was great. Would you give people a 50,000-foot view of your thoughts on the documentary?
Yeah, I thought it was really, really well made. I think one of the things that Ish, Carter, and I all could agree on was that it wasn't too long. Like, they didn't drag it out into a 3 to 4 part series because they easily could have, but they kind of kept it concise into about an hour and 15-minute documentary. And I really enjoyed how vulnerable Johnny Manziel was too, because there's a lot of those times in those documentaries where, a lot of guys just don't take the blame for what happened, and Johnny was very open throughout the whole documentary about what happened, and he took responsibility, and he knows what happened, and he was very open about it. I would probably give it a 7.5 to 8 out of 10.
Okay.
So highly recommend.
Yeah, I enjoyed you guys' review. I haven't watched it yet. But there's a great piece up on TexasFootball.com by Mike Craven who talks about the documentary through Mike Craven's personal lens.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for Mike. He tells his story better than I ever can. I will tell you that he's had struggles in his past with addiction, and he's been very open and honest and clear about it and very forthright about it. And I think he comes at it from a very thoughtful and very mature place. And I know that if you read the story, you will understand that this is that the documentary really resonated with him for different reasons, reasons that I think you and I, who have not gone through the things that Mike has gone through, but millions and millions and millions of other people have, or know somebody who has,
It was very
that
good.
it was particularly resonant with him. So I would invite you to the story is called More Untold Johnny Football's Struggles Helped Me See My Own.
It
So
was a very good
I hope
piece.
you will go and see that on TexasFootball.com. So there's a lot of good stuff on TexasFootball.com, and I want you to read all of it. Just go to there. But there's one thing I want to tell you to go read elsewhere, and I put it on my timeline on Twitter, or whatever we're calling it these days. Stupid.
Twitter. It's
Twitter. It's in the Washington Post, and it's written by friend of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Stephen Godfrey. Stephen Godfrey is the host, or one of the hosts of Split Zone Duo, which is one of my very favorite college football podcasts, and I highly recommend it. And the headline is college football is barreling toward a super league, no matter what might be lost.
Mm-hmm.
This is in reaction to the recent wave of realignment, wherein basically the Pac-12 fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon and Washington joined the Big 12. Utah, Colorado, Arizona.
No, Big 10.
Big 10, correct. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State
Big
joining
12.
the Big 12. They're moving over, leaving 4 teams left holding the bag: Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a further consolidation of power within a couple of conferences. We didn't even mention the SEC, who's already gotten the biggest scalps of them all by bringing in Texas and Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that comes on the heels of them bringing in A&M and Missouri way back when. That comes on the heels of the Big Ten adding in Rutgers and Maryland and all of them.
That was a movement.
And so, and as somebody who's listened to Stephen Godfrey talk about this for a while, he's been kind of signaling this for a while, that this is the way that it's going to go. And part of that Super League is that you're going to have big-time games every week. You're going to get Alabama and Ohio State, like, every year, which seems awesome.
Which is great.
Right? You're going to get Georgia playing Oregon, right? Every year. That could be great. His point is that college football has long been a regional sport that exists in a national context.
Mm-hmm.
I think our history here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football is an example of that. This magazine was started in 1960 because Dave didn't think people were covering the Southwest Conference. And because regionally, that's what mattered here. It mattered Rice versus SMU. It mattered Texas versus Texas Tech. Those games mattered. What he is stating, and I agree with him, is that this is barreling towards a further separation of the haves and the have-nots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're going to have the Alabamas of the world and the Ohio States of the world and the Michigans of the world and the Georgias of the world and the Texases of the world, to make it local. And then a gap, and then everyone else. Everyone else. And there's a couple, I hope you'll go read it, and that's not, in my opinion, and in the opinion of Stephen Godfrey, that's not good.
No.
That is really getting away from what made college football special.
Right.
What made college football special was regionality. And now, what do Penn State and Oregon have to do with one another?
Right.
What do
Rutgers and Oregon?
What do
how is that
what
even
do
make
USC
sense?
and Michigan have to do with each other
Yeah.
aside from having famous helmets?
Right.
That's it. But there's no that's what we're heading towards. You may remember, and I don't know if you were super in tune with this because I know you don't cover soccer the same or follow soccer the same way that a lot of us in the office do. But a couple years ago, there was this like rumor out there, not rumor, but it was happening. They were going to put together a super league that teams were going to leave the Premier League and leave, like, the biggest teams. Manchester United was going to leave the Premier League, and Real Madrid was going to leave La Liga, and all of these giant teams were going to leave. Borussia Dortmund was going to leave the Bundesliga, and they were all going to join into one super league and just play one another. And it's going to be so much money and all this stuff.
So much fun.
And everyone pushed back because they go, no, we like English teams playing English teams. We like Spanish teams playing Spanish teams. We like that kind of those little fiefdoms. And there's no breaks on this in college football. Because the commissioners of college football are the TV networks. And what the TV networks want, the TV networks are going to get. And what the TV networks have signaled that they want is helmet games. They want Michigan playing Georgia.
Every single week.
They want Florida playing USC, right? And eventually, they're going to get it. There's a couple of things quotes I want to bring out there. If anything has become clear this year, there's a quote from the Washington Post. If anything has become clear this year, it's that SEC member Alabama, $214 million in revenue in 2021, doesn't need to feign that it has the same interests and concerns as South Carolina, $144 million, when Ohio State, $251 million, is its actual peer. Because that's the other thing that's coming, and nobody wants to talk about this. Okay? Texas, giant brand, going to be fine. A&M, giant brand, going to be fine. Everyone else in Texas?
What happens? Yeah, North Texas. What happens to Utah?
Sorry,
what happens to Rice?
You don't get to play in this sandbox.
No.
This is for the big kids. You can go over here and play on the little kid playground. And the way that some people, I think, wrongly think about FCS football, right? Oh, they're the FCS national champions. That level's coming for TCU, for Texas Tech, for Arizona State, for Houston. It's coming. One more quote there that I think is interesting. A single pro-style Super League is coming, one group of college football's most popular and wealthiest programs, affiliated solely for their financial prowess and absent of any history, geography, or any other consumer side concern. It's not about you, the fan. They don't care. They care about ratings.
Yep.
They care about TV deals. I hope you'll go read the piece in the Washington Post by Stephen Godfrey. The headline, again, is College Football is Barreling Toward a Super League, no matter what might be lost. And by the way, that's not 100 years from now.
No.
That's like next time we do this.
Next couple of years.
Like
next year. It's starting.
I don't think it's next year.
It's
I think
a couple
because
years.
TV deals are still are happening.
Yeah.
How old are you?
24.
Before your 40th birthday.
Really? Wow. All right.
Sometime in the next 15 years. There's your prediction. Anyway, hope you'll go read it.